The film begins in New Orleans during the 2008 presidential election, in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. The economy is in shambles, and crime is rampant, setting the tone for the film's themes of economic inequality and corruption. The film follows two small-time criminals. Frankie, who is pissed as his friend, Russell, arrives late, holding almost a dozen dog leashes. Frankie takes Russell to a middleman, Johnny Amato, who is called Squirrel and wants to hire people to rob. Squirrel hates Russell's guts because he smells like shit from not taking a bath and smoking pot daily. Squirrel demands Frankie find him another one because the last time Frankie found a guy to do his dirty work, he went behind bars for almost a decade. A few days later, Frankie meets with Russell again, who only has one dog. Russell makes a living by snatching purebred dogs and selling them in Florida. Russell brags that he doesn't need Squirrel's offer as he makes enough money from the dogs to become a drug dealer, and he has a girl waiting for him to come home and copulate. However, Frankie wants to take the offer, so Russell instructs him to get as much information about the job as possible from Squirrel. Frankie agrees to accept if Russell still wants to do it. So, Frankie meets with Squirrel that day and is informed that they are robbing a poker game. Frankie knows that card games are protected by mobs, and only stupid people will attempt to rob them. Frankie claims that yes, he will have money once the job is done, but he's gonna have to look over his shoulders all the time, waiting for these mobbers to end his life. However, Squirrel confidently claims that they will not be the suspect because the minute the robbing happens, they will immediately know who did it. The flashback reveals that Markie Tratman ran the high-stakes poker game 4 years ago. However, Markie gets too greedy after seeing all the cash and orchestrates a successful robbery of his game. This will make Markie the prime suspect if another heist occurs. After the first robbery, the mob hired a hitman, Dylan, to investigate who the mastermind is. Markie was interrogated brutally, but the game started again after finding no evidence to put him behind bars. However, one night, Markie suddenly starts laughing before confessing to the mob about his role in the robbery, acknowledging that he was too foolish to rob his game. Nevertheless, the mob laughed it off as they all loved Markie and thought he was joking. This is why Markie will be the first person they will think of if the poker game is robbed for the second time. However, as other criminals might think of their plan, Squirrel wants the job done fast. The scene then cuts to Frankie in a car with Russell, who has accepted the offer. After scoping the room layout, the number of players, the amount of money being wagered, entrances, exits, and potential obstacles and hazards, Russell and Frankie arrive at a bar. The duo wears masks to avoid being recognized, wears gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints, and carries weapons for protection. Once ready, they enter the bar through the back alley and abruptly enter the poker game through the back door. Once inside the poker room, Frankie and Russell draw their weapons, announce robbing the game, and order everyone to stay still and put their hands on the table. Russell corners and follows Markie, who attempts to stop them from making a horrible mistake while getting the money. Meanwhile, Frankie stands guard at the door to prevent anyone from leaving. A short time later, Russell and Frankie collect all the money from the players and dealers, stuffing it into duffel bags. With the cash in hand, Frankie and Russell exit the poker room and flee the building through the back alley. They discard their disguises before driving away. The morning after the crime against the mob, a professional enforcer or hitman, Jackie Coggan, enters the scene, meeting with a mysterious man known as the driver, who was hired by the mob to investigate and eliminate the people responsible for robbing the poker game. Dylan recommended Jackie to the driver as Dylan hasn't been feeling well enough to handle another case. The driver and Jackie discuss the robbery 4 years ago, and Jackie claims that Markie is not dumb enough to rob the poker game twice. So, Jackie suggests that some other guy must have known that Markie did it before and decided to set him up as the fall guy. The mob wants Jackie to beat Markie enough to make him talk, but not too much. However, Jackie knows that even if Markie is innocent, the mob will ensure he is not involved in the robbery before killing him because they are brutal and merciless. Later that night, 2 men, presumably hired by the mob, ambush Markie and force him to get in the car with them. Markie remains calm as they arrive at an empty road and swears to God that he knows nothing about the robbery. However, the men refuse to believe him, given his confession the last time, and start beating him up, which is really hard and brutal. After multiple blows to his face and body, Markie is left under the rain lying on the ground, badly beaten and bruised. His face swelled and bloodied while gasping for breath and alone. The following day, Russell is seen putting a small package in a locker that he has rented. He seems anxious and nervous as he does so, checking if there's anyone looking at him. Frankie arrives at a train station not long after to fetch Russell, who presumably left after the robbery. They arrive at Russell's place, where he injects drugs into his vein and almost dozes off while talking to Frankie, who keeps waking him up to finish their conversation. Given their recent criminal act, Russell plans to move to Montreal, but Frankie tells him there's nothing to worry about since Markie is almost dead from being beaten up. Russell knows this as a friend informed him while he was in Florida selling the dogs. However, Frankie gets tense as he realizes Russell has talked to a guy who works for Dylan. Russell claims he didn't say anything to his friend, but Frankie is scared as Russell tends to forget things he said or did once he is high. Sure enough, Jackie informs the driver about Squirrel hiring 2 small-time criminals to rob the poker game. It turns out that this friend went to Jackie and told him about his encounter with Russell on the way to Florida. The driver then shares that Markie called him from the hospital because he suffers from broken ribs, jaw, nose, teeth, and spleen. Jackie explains that even though Markie is innocent this time, he must be gone too because the people on the streets know he has done it before. They might think of robbing the mob if all Markie has gotten is a beat up. Jackie agrees to hit Markie, but he needs his friend to finish Squirrel because they know each other. Jackie doesn't want to deal with the emotional bullshit when killing someone he knows because he likes to kill them softly from a distance without feelings or anything. However, the driver is reluctant as this other hitman is expensive, but Jackie makes a deal to contact him for $15,000. The next day, Jackie meets his friend, Mickey, who has arrived from New York, at a bar. Jackie cannot help but notice how Mickey is extremely rude to the poor waiter but refuses to say anything. He listens as Mickey shares how his wife served him divorce papers after he failed to change and went behind bars for 5 years. However, he discovered that she was having an affair, but he didn't blame her or her lover because he was beyond help. Mickey changes the subject as if he didn't fill the air with tension and asks Jackie about what has happened. Jackie informs him that he will be hitting Squirrel as Squirrel knows Jackie while he ends the life of the other later that night. Jackie watches in the distance as a recovering Markie gets into his car and drives away. Jackie tailgates him, his expression grim and focused. Once at the stoplight, Jackie doesn't waste any more time and shoots Markie with the bullet, breaking the window and piercing his right cheek through his brain. Jackie fires all his bullet until Markie's dead. As if that is not enough, Markie loses control of his car and is hit by an oncoming vehicle, leaving his car totaled and his body thrown out of the windshield. The following day, Jackie stops by Mickey's hotel room, where he finds him finishing a hookup with a hooker. Mickey insults the hooker before she leaves. Jackie cannot help but notice that Mickey is drunk and distressed as he shares how his beautiful marriage ended in a brutal divorce. Jackie knocks him off his stress and reminds him he was hired to kill a man, not to complain about his love life. Jackie wants to be there for his friend, but now is not the time. However, Mickey pisses him off when he refuses to cooperate. So, Jackie firmly tells him that he will call in 5 hours, and if he still doesn't do his job, he will inform the police about Mickey's whereabouts to take him back to prison. After that, Jackie leaves to meet with the driver. Jackie tells the driver that Mickey has been in New Orleans for 3 days, including drinking and hooking up with hookers. Jackie adds that Mickey's divorce left him useless in the criminal world, and now he has to think of another way to end Squirrel's life. Meanwhile, Russell returns to the train station, where he notices a couple of men observing his every move. Despite that, Russell retrieves the package from the locker and walks away when the police arrive at the entrance to arrest him. They cite him the Miranda rights, but Russell is too high to understand everything and resist the authority. The news of Russell being arrested spreads like wildfire, and Frankie is now scared shit because he knows it is only a matter of time before the mob takes him and Squirrel. Later that day, Jackie confronts an unknowingly Frankie at his local bar and asks him where Squirrel will be tomorrow night. Fear is evident in his eyes, his lips shivering as Frankie attempts to remain calm and act innocent, claiming he doesn't know. Frankie stops himself from crying as Jackie threatens to call Dylan so he can know who he is talking to. Left with no choice, Frankie informs Jackie that Squirrel has mentioned seeing a girl, and he has told Squirrel that he is going to be home the day after tomorrow. However, Jackie tells him he will not be home because Frankie will accompany him when they follow Squirrel tomorrow night. Frankie refuses and panics as Squirrel will surely go after him when he sees them tomorrow. However, Jackie threatens to end his life before going after Squirrel if he doesn't cooperate. And so, tomorrow night comes. Frankie stops the car in a dark and silent neighborhood and attempts to stop Jackie from doing his job by blurting out nonsense about how a criminal middleman is a good guy. Frankie makes Jackie laugh by saying that Squirrel is just one of the many misunderstood men and is a lovely husband to his wife and a good father to his kid. However, Jackie is set to finish his job. Not long after, Frankie recognizes the incoming car and tries to deny that Squirrel owns it, but Jackie refuses to believe him. Jackie knows he's lying from his body language and his eyes avoiding his stares. Squirrel gets out of the car with a sexy woman, presumably his lover. Jackie watches as they enter the building before taking the car keys as he suspects Frankie will drive away and leave him once he exits. Jackie stands beside the passenger seat and holds his gun above the hood, waiting for Squirrel to appear. As expected, Squirrel exits the building alone and walks to his car when Jackie fires a shot that breaks through the window to Squirrel. Jackie doesn't see Squirrel moving or crawling, so he walks over to find Squirrel bathing in his blood from the strong impact. However, that doesn't satisfy Jackie, so he fires more bullets into Squirrel even when he has stopped moving and breathing. After that, he returns to the car and gives Frankie the keys. Witnessing Jackie cold-bloodily killing Squirrel, Frankie overspeeds, almost hitting 100. Frankie cannot slow down despite Jackie repeatedly telling him to slow down. So, Jackie forces him to stop the car on the roadside and takes over the wheel. While arriving at a parking lot, Jackie reminds Frankie that wipe the car to erase their fingerprints before getting to his car and going home. After ensuring that Jackie exits the car, Frankie moves over to the driver's seat, ready to go home, when Jackie shoots him in the head. Of course, that is not enough, so Jackie pierces 3 more bullets into Frankie, wiping down his fingerprints all over the car and leaving. That same night, Squirrel and Frankie's bodies are pushed into the morgue freezer as the mob presumably cleans up the corpses. Meanwhile, Jackie meets with the driver at a bar to report that the job is done. The driver then gives him an envelope containing his payment, which Jackie takes to the bathroom as he needs to pee. Not long after, Jackie returns, seemingly pissed, as the envelope only contains $30. The deal was $15 for every person, and he killed the 3. The driver tells him to take it on Dylan, but Jackie informs him that Dylan died that morning from an illness. The film ends with Jackie claiming that America is not a country but a business, commenting on capitalism, greed, and corruption. He then firmly orders the driver to pay him up.